All right. So what we got here is transmission fluid. All right. Now I know what y'all thinking. Why don't you have the Nissan transmission fluid? All right. So let me tell you what's going on. I've had about 4 or 5 Nissans, and every single Nissan that I've had, I've dropped the transmission fluid when I get it, drop the oil when I get it. You know, I do the routine maintenance to it because honestly, if you don't have service reports from the dealership or proof of things being changed, I change it anyway. You know what I mean? And in this case, I drove the car from Dallas, so I knew that I was gonna take out some of the stuff in the car. You know, like the oil and transmission fluid when I got home. So while driving, you know, I felt a slight hesitation and slip. Not while, you know, 4th and 5th speed on the highway, of course not. On the highway, you're smooth, you're good. It was more or less from the 1st and 2nd gear, you kind of feel that slip. I've dealt with Nissans before. I know what it is. I know what's going on. Basically, long story short, I've always dropped my transmission fluid, and I've decided to go in there, and I never use Nissan's fluid, and I have perfect success every single time. Transmission has never gone out on me, with the exception of one time due to a bad radiator, which I'll go into with a totally different video. But it's never gone bad to me due to the wrong fluid or, you know, not enough fluid. I've never burnt out a transmission that way. All right. Transmissions usually, basically, this is my understanding of what transmissions do. And from my experience of having Nissan cars, I'm not talking about any other car, it's Nissan in general. With a Nissan car, typically what happens is the transmission will run, you know, you do 100,000 miles on a brand new car, you're loving it. 100,000 miles later, the transmission fluid breaks down. You have the metal shavings in there. And I think that all transmissions pretty much do that. It might not be, you know, slipping at that point in time, because I've always heard people say, oh, you never change the transmission fluid if you didn't do it on time. Because once you change the transmission fluid, people always experience, oh, now it's slipping. Well, why did it go from okay to slipping? Well, the reason being is because a new transmission gets broken in, and those metal shavings have been shaved and made the fluid a little bit thicker, and it made the traction that it needed to, you know, transition. Now, when there were no metal shavings at all, the transmission fluid was the boss. But the metal shavings and the fluid, it actually, you know, breaks in the transmission a little bit. And it adds a little bit of grit and grind so that you can actually hit those gears perfect timing. Once you drain all of that out, the transmission has been broken in. It was used to having a thicker agent inside of it. So you basically are now putting in no grit and no grind into a transmission, and it's going to slip a little bit. So I've experienced this in every Nissan car I've ever had. You just don't go, you don't even go with the straight valvoline. You know what I mean? You got to put something in there a little thicker. And this right here, I put this in all of my Nissans, Infinitis, Nissans, no matter what. I put them in all of my cars, and it works perfectly. It works perfectly. Now, again, it's not going to fix broken parts. If your car is broken, the transmission, you need a new torque converter or whatever, valve body. This is not going to fix it, okay? This basically adds a little bit of thickness to the transmission that gives it that same feel that it had when it had all that metal shavings in there. Because remember, you drop the pan, you drop the filter, you're getting rid of all that metal shavings that added that grit, that grind, and make the transmission hit those timings and those marks right on time. So you got to put something a little thicker in there. Now, I would not tell or put anything online that I haven't done myself. I've done this at least 4 times, okay? In this car, I tested it. I said, you know what? Before I even make a video, I'm gonna test it myself. I went on Nissan. I went down to Nissan. I bought the Nissan transmission fluid like everybody recommended, and I put just Nissan transmission fluid back into my car. It's been a slipping nightmare. Okay? The fluid that I had previously didn't slip this bad. So what I'm experiencing is from first to second gear, it's a slippage. Okay, let's say if I stop at a light and I'm hit the gas, it doesn't just shoot off. If I just hit it, it's gonna jerk. Okay, if I ease into it, it does a little hesitation and then it shoots off. Now, I just did the catalytic converters, so that did help. The hesitation came from the catch as well. But there is some transmission slips between my first and second gear. All right, once I'm out of those gears, car runs beautiful. But first and second gear, there's an issue right there. Okay, that's where this stuff comes in. It works perfect. All right, I've used it on my cars plenty of times. I would not recommend it if I did not use it, and I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't already try. Go ahead and drop in some transmission fluid that came directly from Nissan, because again, people, Nissan does not make transmission fluid. They go to these companies and say, hey, make transmission fluid for my car, and that's it. So Valvoline, Mobile, you know, they basically put their logo, you know, fill up the bottles and put Nissan logos on the bottles and then seal it to Nissan. That's it. You know what I mean? Nissan don't have a factory in the back pumping out oil. Now, yes, it's true, they might put other additives in those oils that, you know, that may not be in everybody else's oil. But when it's all said and done, Valvoline is a big ass company. I have a hard time believing that them putting, where is it, in Nissan Infiniti and all the different grades on here, and then they ruin your transmission. The big time $1 million company, $1 billion company like them, I don't think so. They're putting it on a bottle for a reason. So I get a little eerie when people say, oh, you gotta get the Nissan and you gotta get this. To a degree, okay, you do want to get the bottle that's for your car. This has the additives in it for Nissan vehicles. You don't want to go get the one that's GM only and it just never says anything on your car. You don't want to just get a transmission fluid. You gotta get the right transmission fluid. But you don't have to go to Nissan to get it. That's what I'm trying to explain to you, everybody. So the next set of video will be me dropping the transmission fluid for this car. Now, first thing first, transmission fluid is a there's no dipstick in this car. So what that means is no dipstick. The drain and fill plug are at the bottom of the pan. Congratulations. Yes, you have to buy a pump and pump the fluid in by hand. This works very, very well with a teammate. My homeboy would be working with me, you know, doing that. And the next thing you're going to see is him actually holding the hose and me pumping the fluid in, if I can record it while I'm doing it. But for Nissan cars, you have to basically be very crafty on how you do it, because you know, one person has to hold the hose, one person has to pump the hose, then one person has to get out and then start the car up and then run the fluid through the car. Once the fluid gets ran through the car and you're pumping a little bit more fluid and you go on your brake, your reverse, your drive, okay, you can put a little bit more fluid inside and you pump in more fluid. So there's measuring involved, there's pumping involved. There's a lot of things involved well, we're putting in transmission fluid back into a Nissan. So I will say that I've done it previously a couple of weeks ago. The only reason I'm doing this now is because if you saw my catalytic converter video, it seemed like my gasket was leaking. So I bought a new gasket. I'm just gonna replace the gasket, drop the pan, clean the pan out, get the metal shavings and everything out of it, clean the magnet, put everything back up, and then pump back in the new fluid. So that's basically the whole entire role that I plan on playing. And I'm gonna try to cheat it a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can pour some fluid in the pan itself, and then kind of, since there's two of us down there working, I hold the pan while he bolts it up. So I'm gonna cheat it a little bit. I'm gonna see what happens. So I got enough fluid to play around with that, you see, because I think we can put at least all the Lucas in there, because the Lucas is pretty thick and it's a little bit harder to get that in, you know, pumped into a hose. So I might pour the Lucas into the pan and then put the pan up and then kind of hold it while he bolts it in. And then once he got all of it bolted down, at least all the bolts in, now he goes around just tightening everything, and then we finally pump all the fluid in. So we're gonna play around with that some more. So it's not over with that. But I wanted to make this video before the video explaining what I'm doing, to kind of illustrate everything. And I'm gonna put out more videos with dealing with Nissan transmissions. When I say Nissan, I mean Infiniti too. There's some issues with them, but yes, please follow, like, subscribe. Thank you. Comment on these videos too, man. Comment. If you got something to say, say it. I don't care if it's negative, just say it. It's all good. You can bring it to the forefront so we can talk about it. All right? Thanks. All right, here we go. Got the transmission pan off. And again, this is very simple. 10mm bolts all the way around. All right. Pulled off the gasket. There's the old gasket. And that's the new one right there. And what we're going to do is I'm just using the blade. Now, be careful when you do this. You don't want to put no divots in your metal and scrape it so that way it's like a dip. All right, you want it to be completely smooth, completely flush all the way around, so that way when you put the silicone there, put the new gasket on, it'll sit flush and you let that dry. All right, so got the gasket on there. I put the silicone on. You know, you don't want to put too much silicone, but you want enough so that this thing just dries to the pan. And this is the pump right here. We're gonna pump the fluid back into that hole, just like that. All right. All right. Hose. All right. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Got it in there tight?
Yeah.
Here it comes. So what I'm doing now is I'm going into each gear, allowing the fluid to go up into the whole entire transmission. We were pumping it in, and after a while it has to the pan starts to fill up. So you start the car up, go into your gears, and allow the transmission fluid to go through the entire system. That will take some transmission out of the pan and throughout the whole entire transmission, so we can pump in the rest of the fluid we got to pump in. All right, what's going on, everybody? So this is an update of the transmission. This is a week later, or about 2 weeks later, so I did the transmission. And basically, explaining to you, I like to do videos after I've already played around with it and kind of gone through the little bumps and bruises of it. Driving around, I have no slips whatsoever, no hesitations. Everything's running pretty smooth. When I hit the gas, it just takes off. The 1 and 2nd gear, where I was experiencing some issues, that cleared it right up. No issues there. And this just proves the point. What I was trying to say was basically you can use, you know, the fluid that's supposed to be for your car, of course. You know, you look at the back of the bottle to read it, but you don't have to use Nissan fluid and only Nissan fluid. After the engine gets worn in, that stuff is just too loose. And when you take out all of the bad fluid and how thick it was and put in a super loose fluid, I mean, the transmission got used to using a little bit more grittier, thicker fluid, you know? I'm not saying to keep that in there. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying that you're going to need something a little thicker sometimes to help with slips, because you will slip, all right? Also, if you look at the nozzle of where my friend put the nozzle into the transmission, the fill plug, we had to end up zip tying that in, because the hose, the little fluid was coming squeezing through the hose. So with 2 zip ties, we zip tied it real good, and that kind of fixed the issue right there. That pump is a very good pump, you know, for pumping back in fluid and things like that. I recommend it. You can get one, I think, at that AutoZone for about, I think $20, $15 or $20. Wasn't that high. But yeah, if you got any questions, concerns, or matters you want to discuss, if you think that you got to use Nissan fluid and you work for Nissan and they said use this and it's important that you use this, you know, hit the comments. Let's talk about it. But I've about 5 Nissans since, you know, for a long time now I've been rocking Nissan, and all of my Nissans I've always dropped transmission fluid and put in either castor oil, Pennzoil, or whoever makes their transmission fluid, a different company than Nissan with their, you know, bottles. I put their fluid in, no problems. Never had a problem. Lucas and Nissans work together very well. So again, anybody got any, you know, if you don't agree, if you had a totally different experience, hit me up. We'll talk about it. But this process, no matter what you do, is very similar to the G37. Exactly the same thing. Fill plug, drain plug. That's it. I think if I ever do an update to this video, I'll probably go back in there, drop the pan, and do the filter next time. I didn't have the chance to order the filter because I couldn't find it. And then when I did find it, I already had the gasket, and I just said, let me go ahead and just change it now because I was leaking. I didn't want to leak all my fluid out, and it's not that easy to pour fluid in. You got to pump it in. So I just went ahead and actually just changed out the gasket. But I need to order a filter. I'll probably change it, do maybe about 70,000 miles. And then I'll do the fluid again, or 35,000 miles, something like that. And then I'll chop the fluid again, do a filter. And but yeah, anybody got any concerns, questions, or anything regarding the transmission flush, hit me up, let me know.